Sunday morning, the new year. With us this morning is Dr. William J. Parker. He's the CEO of the Parker Maritime Technologies, and he was a president of the East-West Institute, and 30 years in the Navy at very, very high levels. And Dr. Parker, what the heck is going on? I mean, there's so many questions I could ask you on the first Sunday of the new year. The drones, where the heck are they coming from? They say that it's really a division of the Navy. What's going on with China? Where do you want to start?
Well, John, first of all, Happy New Year. It's great to finally make it to 2025 here, and looking forward to a very exciting time here this year. I guess we might as well start with China, since that seems to be a regular discussion of ours. As you know, John, the number of vertical launch systems that the Chinese have gone from basically zero to now over 4,300 VLS cells, and the United States has about 8,400. So they're about to shoot past us here in the next couple of years, just as they have shot past us in the number of surface combatants, and now they're designing some pretty high-tech aircraft that they're flying around as well.
Understood. Where does this technology come from?
Well, the technology comes from internal to them. A lot of it comes from the United States. When you look at their aircraft carrier and much of their technology, it comes from not only visits, but from stealing technology from the United States. It also comes from their friends, allies, such as Iran and others around the planet. So they're getting it from wherever they can, and they're doing a good job of exploiting it.
And they have an aircraft now, supersonic aircraft now, that they're bragging they're going to make a airline out of it that looks like the SR-71.
They do, and bragging with them usually means that they're going to pull it off. And numbers matter. And John, you and I have talked about this a lot before. And the amount of ships that they build compared to the number of ships that we build, the number of aircraft they're building, far exceeds ours now. And we can't forget that the reason we won World War II, in addition to the great Americans that fought there, was because we had a system that allowed us to build ships and aircraft and all those things we needed quickly to surge. And we don't have much of that now, and we need to get back to it and get back to it quickly.
Understood. The technology that they're using on these possible, a lot of people are blaming the drones on them too. Are they ours or is it theirs? Or are they both, a little bit of both?
I'll separate what I know and what we'll talk about. And what we'll talk about is that there are a lot of countries out there that would like to exploit the United States in any way they can, not just our facilities here in the continental United States, but around the globe. And we know that the Chinese have done that in the past, as has the Russians and many others. And so do we know exactly who, does the public know exactly who these many drone sightings that we've seen over the last weeks are? No. But we did have balloons fly over us not that long ago either from China. So I think you're probably going to find when it all comes out public that there's a combination of our own stuff and things from other countries, and also within the United States, because we do not have good control right now over these drones. I think it's just a matter of time before we start having issues with aircraft strikes on final or taking off as these drones are flying around our airports as well.
What else would you like to talk to the American people on a Sunday morning, the first Sunday in the new year of 2025?
Well, John, I'm privileged to be on that first call with you in 2025, as we have been many years before. As we look at the Red Sea, major issues there, and it's interesting that it is the Chinese, that it is the Indians, the United States, many others who are dealing with the Houthis and having missiles shot at their ships, et cetera. And so that has got to stop. The reality is that there are a lot of folks that looked at the world and looked at the United States and how we left Afghanistan, how we've dealt with Ukraine, and other issues like this, and they're now emboldened. And they're emboldened to the point where they're taking shots at our ships, whether they're civilian or military, and that's got to change. And I suspect it will change here in the next couple of weeks. As far as the Panama Canal goes, that was the largest U.S. project in our history when we built the canal. It was about $375 million in the early 1900s. We gave that away under the Carter administration, signed the agreement, and then it was actually transferred under the Clinton administration. And there's a lot of people that are saying, hey, wait a minute, and including the next president, they're saying, hey, wait a minute, we built that thing. We had a lot of people die building it, and maybe it's time to get that back, or at a minimum, maybe it's time to say all flagged U.S. ships go through there for nothing, and we get a percentage of everything that goes through that canal that we built and paid for. So there's lots of arguments on that, but my opinion is that we do need to reap the benefits of what so many Americans put their life towards and our money towards in building that.
Now, I was talking from the strategic point of view. We need the Panama Canal. We don't need anybody else controlling it. Greenland. You were a Navy man for 30 years. Is there a strategic value to Greenland going over the North Pole or into Asia and Soviet Union? Or not? Well, Russia. There is no Soviet Union. Sorry.
Yeah, John, I think you just hit it. Real estate and geography is everything there, but it's also a very large piece of real estate. And I do think there'd be real value in us having more impact there. Now, whether or not we, that becomes the 52nd state, or whether or not that just becomes another close ally is a different conversation. But I do think there'd be real value in increasing our presence there. There's also real value and necessity in building icebreakers. And we've been talking about this for a decade now. But in order to have access to a certain part of the world, you have to have icebreakers, and the U.S. just doesn't have them, and for some reason will not spend the money to build those to get us in those areas that we need to. So I think that'll be an issue, hopefully, in the next few years as well.
Last question on a Sunday morning. Finland and Norway all upset at the Russians possibly cutting cable lines, in other words, dragging their anchor and cutting lines, communications lines. What say you?
John, I think there's no doubt that they did that. I think there's no doubt that you'll see more of that. I think that there's a major issue in the fact that we communicated exactly where those were to the world, and they're not protected in the ways they should be. But this is a serious act of aggression and impact on those countries that are our allies, and I think there are some actions that are going to need to be taken to counter that. I remember that the vast majority of our banking goes through those types of cables as well. So if they can cut them there and get away with it, where will the next place be that they cut them? And then what is going to be the backup when those go down? Or what is the backup when those go down and now you lose a series of your satellites? Do you have HF capability for the future? Are we bringing that back up again, which we took down over the last several decades? So I think there's lots of things like that need to be talked about. Of what is the backup when that cable or when that satellite system goes down?
When that satellite system goes down and the cables go down, question, is there a new technology? I understand, and what I hear, there is a new technology being worked on.
There are new technologies that are being worked on, but there's also old technology which can be used again, and one of those is HF, or high-frequency capability, which has very long range, and you can pump a lot of information through that. So I think the combination of those two things are very important, and who owns those systems in that real estate to be able to move HF from one place to the other is important. Do you have it on your ships or do you not? Is another way to move it. But you're right, there are some other new technologies out there as well. So I think that combination will play a critical role as we move forward here, especially as we will likely see more of these cables being cut.
Dr. William J. Parker, 30 years in the Navy. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you've done, and you continue to speak out for our country. Thank you, and Happy New Year, and we'll catch up again.
Thank you very much, John.